Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. My name is OctoMan, and today I want to go and try out some kind of a snakes game or snake, which is the one like where you're gonna eat some point and the snake is going to extend in its size. But I want to do it not like based. I want to make it more like a fluid game. Let's say you're gonna go to the left and to the right, and the body is going to, like a snake, is going to follow. But I want to keep it or make it a bit more not like snake. I want to make it more like a caterpillar. Like you have a headpiece, and then you have multiple caterpillar piece, and probably a special end, which is like. Not really intersecting into it. So why do we start with Inkscape? A bunch of people are struggling with Inkscape or with graphics in general, and so I want to make sure that everybody who wants to be a game designer or game developer, whatever, has to do graphics no matter what. And even if people try to avoid graphics because, hey, I want to only program, I want to only do this, I want to only do that, but I don't want to touch graphics, well, you should. It's same with sound, same with music. Later on, sooner or later, you have to go and hire somebody to make the music and the sounds for you, or you grab them on free websites, or you're gonna have to go and hire somebody, or you need to do this on your own, depending on the game, on the style of whatever you want and whatever you have to do. So that's why I want to go also and cover the 2D aspect or the graphics aspect in general, because it is super important that you know that this is an important step. So don't avoid it. If you do just prototyping, that's a different story. But if you want to do something, let's say, a bit beautiful and appealing to your audience, you feel free to do so. So what I start with is I want to create or design the head, a rather simple one, but I don't want to colorize that too much. What I want to do is I want to simply outline the shape of my little caterpillar. I want to make it a bit, let's say, kids-like, because that's more or less kids-based or the kids game. The caterpillar probably needs a nose or something like that. I want to make it so that this is the nose, and then I put some friendly face, I would say. So we see some cuddly eyes, and maybe something to, yeah, something over here, maybe some little and antilla, whatever it's called, well, these things, antenna, maybe left and right, something like that. So we want to make it cute, beautiful, not too much, but also not too less. We can also go and make this one as beautiful as we want to, and I want to keep the body white, and I'm gonna tell you in a moment why. Well, first off, I want to arrange the actual pieces over here. So I want to make it so that it is like, all the same thing and all the same height. Now I want to have like a line, which is going to be like over here. And then the back piece could be maybe, yeah, any color basically, maybe green or red or whatever. So what I want to do is I want to first off draw a line from left to right, rather straight probably. And then I double tap here, so I have the possibility to do some design things. I can go up and down. I don't know if I 100% on the line in the center here, but I can try to be on the line. So I can always snap to specific positions, for example. So I can make a, let's say, cute design. Want to do the same here. So not quite sure if and how the design could be, but you need to test it out. I mean, that's what it is. You have to test it. So I want to make these 2 points. They don't look like they are symmetrical. So I want to make it so that I'm gonna go and try to make it symmetrical. And then I take these 2 points, like these two, and make them a roundish as well. And trying to make them rather straight. So I can manipulate them, like hooking to the right space. Same thing here. I wanna make it so that this one point is round as well, and try to make it rather straight as well. So now I can put some little eyes. I can just copy the nose, make that, well, a bit more flat. It's maybe looks a bit like Mickey Mouse later on, but that's fine. Now I want to group them, so I go to Object and Group. Now I want to make sure that I arrange these to this and then to this head as well. And since I forgot this line here, I need to take this line and align the stuff back to it. So again, gonna take this, just take them all and make them center. So everything is centered. Based on this group now, I know that I'm centered over here. I'm not centered with this helper line, but that's fine. I can just try to find the point over here, even if I don't need to. Now, what I want to do is I want to extend or maybe tint just this body part or this head piece over here, and I wanted to put some like 2 antennas over here. So the best thing is I can do at the moment is I can duplicate this one circle, bring this to the side, gonna take this one, duplicate this as well. Now I want to arrange them next to each other. Now I take this line and extend from here. So I just paint around this piece, just make it bigger, like so. Now I have 2 possibilities. I can say I want to use the intersection to be the back side, or I can use the front side. Both works. So I have literally 2 splitted pieces. What I can also do is I can use that to split, just cut the actual piece into 2. So we can just use cut paths. So I have this front piece and this piece. But as you can tell, this pieces here, or this one piece, does not have the line we want, this one here. So what we can do is, instead of just cutting them, is probably using division. So division means we got this piece and we got this piece now. This is what we want, what I want actually. So now I can get rid of this one piece and this one and take all of them and just make them aligned again. Bring this one down and now everything looks good. I can do some highlights on the nose if I want to. I can just, make a little white dip on the nose, so it looks a bit more maybe 3D-ish, and then I can do the same in the eyes if I want to. Can get rid of the outline. Gonna duplicate this, and so we have like a little shiny a look into the eyes. And now I can tint the body parts. I could even say I'm gonna give this maybe I don't know, a natural something, and then the actual head. If you want to make this one a bit more, let's say, 3D-ish or looking 3D-ish, we can do so. And this means we can just give some highlight, some shine on the top, and the rest is going to, and then it's like bleeding out. There are multiple possibilities we have. We can just draw a circle. We don't really have to center that, but I would say I just tint this one white, and I can put this wherever I want to. And now I go and reduce the opacity of the circle to, let's say, maybe 20%. So we know there's something lit on top, but we want to blend it over, so the edges over here are going to be blurred. And so we can go to, I believe it's Path Effects. No, it's not. It's Fill and Stroke, and over here we got Blur. So we can blur a bit. So we have like a highlighted shine. We can go and play around with the opacity. We can make it bigger or smaller or something like that. If we don't like the highlight being on top or just only that one highlight, we can, by the way, also play around with sizes and stuff and see if it works anywhere. We can also do the opposite to the bottom or to the outside over here. We can say we want to reduce the actual opacity, or we can use something called the gradient. So this gradient tool over here gives us the possibility to paint a circle. The outer points here now need to get maybe a darker green, but a full color. And this one here might be a bit higher or a bit brighter. And we can also put in extra points over here and play around with the actual look. So if we want to go circle-wise, we can also bring this circle in the center of the head if we want to. I'll play around with these things. If we don't like this too harsh highlight over here, once again, we can always go play around with that. We can also go a bit inwards here, so it's getting a bit darker to the outside, so it's looking more like a ball. We can do the same thing with the actual face. So highlight the most important ones and get rid of the rest if we want to, but we don't have to. Once again, same thing happens to any other part of the body later on as well. So in that case, I can just use the same thing. I just use the gradient tool. Maybe I make the tip of the nose a bit more or less brighter or something like that. Can bring this also to the tip of the nose. So I can tell these ones here, these outer ones, maybe are a bit darker, but I need to increase alpha first. Or I can also make the opposite, can make it brighter. So let's say we're gonna increase the brightness on the nose piece. Maybe I drag it a bit back. Maybe not. Not too shabby, I would say. Maybe I can drag these pieces a bit away so the circle is more circular. Nice. So now I want to put the two antennas over here. If you want to, you can later on separate them to give them some bounciness on animations if you want to animate. But if you don't, well then just don't care. I want to keep them round at the corner and then bring them like forward, so they are probably somewhere here. To do that, I just create a full opacity, 100%, something. I'm not sure which color I want the antennas to be, but probably black is fine. Maybe not, I don't know. I'm gonna put the antenna, or this is like the front or the top, whatever. And under that, I wanna use some Bezier curves, maybe some round attachment over here, and then go back. You don't need to close these because they're going to be under the actual topic or under the actual antenna front. So, and in here I just can use another gradient fill if I want to, by just using the original green one. But instead of a roundish one, we can use a straight fill like this, from left to right. Or you can also start in the center, so you have the shadow in the front, but you can also split it apart and put another color over there. So in here I go first full color, and from the brighter part I just take this one. From the darker part I might just take this one, and now I will maybe get rid of the outline, at least for the moment, and see how it looks. Doesn't look good enough, so probably I'm gonna keep the outline and just make it a bit more beautiful. Like, for example, do some everything which is a bit like edgy. I probably get rid of that. Gonna make this one on top, not on the bottom, on the top. Maybe also give it a shine. Maybe I'm gonna make it green as well, I don't know. And take the highlight. And if you want to make it a bit more 3D-ish, you can also add some shadow. So basically the form of the shadow is literally the same as this one plus this ball. So we can just duplicate things, bring them a bit, let's say here, I get rid of this snap for a moment, and make them just pure black. Now we reduce the actual orientation of them and reduce opacity to, let's say, 10-20%. Maybe 30 or 50. Let's try 50. 50 might be a bit too much, but let's see. So I would put the shadow maybe anywhere here, maybe like that. So, and I want to do the same for the other side. You can always go and group them. Objects, duplicate, Control D is all the same as it is in Unity, so you don't have to learn anything new. Not too much. Now we just try to fill out where it could be nice. When we go outside, we don't see this shadow of the bubble, so we need to define if you want to stay inside the actual headpiece. And also only move, or make sure you only move the actual complete group. Looks okay, I guess. So next one is we need a body piece, just one. And this one I want to keep untinted or literally white. Why white? Because Unity can tint white pieces. So for example, when we eat a green apple and a red apple, we might be able to differentiate between them two things. So we can say if we eat a red apple, we get a red apple, a red body piece, and if we eat a plum or a cherry, then we might get a red piece, something like that. So there are, let's say, possibilities to do that. So head is done. The body piece, they should be all interconnectable. So when I get a new one, I want to make sure that the other one is going to be fitting into this one. And to do this, we can do just some simple shapes, which are always having the same shape inside out and outside in. So we can literally follow, if we want to, the head piece itself. But if we go and move around, then probably they're gonna go and intersect. So just keep that in mind. But shouldn't hold us back and try, to make it beautiful. If you want to make sure that you are always going work symmetrical, then try to do this or work symmetrical as best as you can. So I can snap two center points over here, two lines. And the body piece might be a bit bigger, like so. And maybe to this point, and then maybe something like this. We want to make sure that we test if we duplicate this one and would put this over here, that we're gonna see that they would fit literally, like form-wise. So I'm gonna take the points here and rearrange them so that they would fit the other piece over there. Need to get rid of snap for a moment. So each of these pieces would now fit into each other. So I need to get rid of the last one, of course. So, and I get rid of this center line point here, because I don't need it. And now I just go and fill this with any color, so I can see this, like gray. And duplicate all over, Control D, and flip, and snap to the center. Gonna undo once, snap it here, and now I'm gonna combine these two pieces by just using pass union, and so we got a body piece. Once again, we only use one or need one, and then the last piece is we need like a tail piece or something like that, which also fits the same scenario, fits the same thing. Once again, they might not work correctly, or they might not fit correctly. What I want to do over here is I want to have some gradients working, but we need to shade them white and grayish. So we start with light color on top like we did here, but maybe gonna give it some extra something. So literally we're gonna go and make a gradient left to right. We can make it rather straight. We're gonna take any gray for color. We can also pick the gray with the color picker from the other side. And in the center, I'm gonna put a white or something bright actually. Same here and same here. I'm gonna keep them colors, but I wanna make maybe this one here even a bit darker. And I can also once again color pick the other side. So they're literally looking symmetrical. And the last thing I want to add is maybe a pair of legs. So I make a circle, make it black, and increase opacity, of course, to 100%. And so we can put some kind of legs or shoes or something. We can, if we want to, later on also go for animation, but that is not really necessary at this point. If you want to use two pairs of legs per per body piece, then you can. Super simple, nothing fancy. You just need to make sure that they do opposite movement later on if you want to go for animation. So I don't aim for it, but maybe sooner or later I have to implement it. So a leg just sticks out over here. It's gonna be later on a bit roundish, and then we have like a shoe in the bottom or something like that. Super simple, don't overdo it. If you want to go a bit more fancy with the 3D effects, well, then you are absolutely free to do so. I changed this one object to pass, so I can use the points and, you know, rearrange them a bit. Same here. If I make it a bit brighter, I can see how it looks. So we can maybe make it so that it sticks out a bit outside of the hole. We can also even give this one a gradient, like front to back, with the same, literally the same highlight. So I'm gonna do this, and then I should be able to pick the one we just have used before. So we are done with that already. And again, if we want to put some shoe or some foot on, we can just use a simple circle. Go downwards, bring it wherever it has to be. Maybe see size and stuff, I don't know. We can literally give it the same scenario, but in that case I would go for a circular vise. Hi Mortally X, thanks a lot for tuning in. So in here we can, as you can tell, do the same thing. We just rotate a bit here and there. We can put again a bit stuff together and just play around with these gradients. So they may or may not fit our needs. Probably I'm gonna keep it like this. And we can of course move this a bit around and see how it fits our needs. If you want to have later on want to animate this, for example, you want to go for just a simple rotation like this and like that, you know, that you have this movement animation just by a rotation. You can do this by exporting it later on. You just need to make sure that when you export it, that this one is a separated piece. If you want to, you can also go for outlines over here, so we fit the rest of the design. Up to us, we can decide how we want this. I'm gonna make a group again, so we go to Object Group, Control D for duplicate, split all over the place, and put it onto the other side. Holding down Control key should give us the possibility to go in the same line, so we don't get away too much. And then we have our first body piece. If we want to paint it more or tint it more, we can always add more effects, like more shininess or something like that. And later on, Unity is able to tint the white and gray pieces and make them even black and purple and something like that, depending on what we ate. Same for the foot. If we have them separated, they're gonna stay what they are. If we don't have them separated, well, then it is what it is. So last piece I want to put and add some kind of a short tail. Before I do so, I want to show you what it might look later on. So if we duplicate this one, our actual caterpillar is going to extend and extend and extend. So later on we have like a huge caterpillar which just, you know, gets extended. And if we want to, we can later on also play around with the scale of the pieces. But then they may or may not fit to their positions. So whenever we are later on done with that, and we want to rotate it, we just need to make sure that we always rotate wherever the rotation point has to be, probably here. So we rotate maybe about around the head or something. We just need to fiddle out later on what is the correct rotation point or pivot point for the rotation later on. So for example, maybe it's here, maybe it's here. I just don't know. This is something we need to later on fiddle out again. So whenever we rotate, we will find a way. We will find a position. But for Unity, we just need one piece. We just need one sample or something. So final step is we need to create the same shape kind of here for the tail piece. And well, now I can do something like a spiky tail, or maybe a two-sided tail, like I don't know what these creatures are called, but something like that. So we have like two of the ends, and maybe can put something antenna-y like onto here as well. There's one more flaw. I just need to connect these two passes. I don't know if I can just do... I should be able to melt these or join them. So they are now, this is now one actual piece. So, and this one is something I can tint again in the color I want. For example, I can make the base and the back side can make it green, but the body parts can be literally based on Unity later on be on the separated route over there, or separated something. In that case, we can, first of all, we should maybe give it any color first. Control D, duplicate, and bring this one onto the other side. So we got the complete tail piece. That looks a bit too far. So I take maybe this one a bit more to the inside and make it a bit more, I don't know, smaller, let's say. Maybe I put another point here just to give it a bit more of a shape, to be a bit rounded over there. Control D to duplicate, split all over, make sure that you snap to that. Yeah, that looks good. And now I use pass, union again, and you know, everything is union. So I want to make another gradient again, but this one needs like a straight one. But I want to pick the green one we just had before. Let's see if I can take it like this. But since that is round, I might want to go and do the opposite way. Basically, that I have the lighter color over there and the darker color on the body. So I can just rotate and snap to the corresponding positions. Looks okay, but what I want is maybe a little extra for that. Since that here got a darker outside shape. And what I can do is I can just paint by using this pen and a rather smooth curve, maybe something around 40. I can just paint, okay, I would like to see some kind of a shadow on this side, for example. And what I can do now is I can make a copy of the tail piece, Control D, pick this one and say I want to only see the intersection of the two, which is going to be just that part. Now what I can do is I can just get rid of useless, you know, shapes or dots. And now I can tint this one to be, let's say, black, no outline. And then I give it, you know, less opacity, maybe something like 50%, which automatically makes it a bit more, you know, different, I would say. Can also duplicate it, Control D, bring it to the other side, snap to it, make sure snap is on. And snap to the outside. So it's looking a bit more sharp. And if you want to do some more inside, like if that pieces would be a bit higher, you can also make this one a bit darker in the center. So something like, you know, something like that. So we can combine the actual shape from this and make this more like, look more like internal. If we want to, we can also put some of the actual antennas on top of it, like one of the noses. Gonna duplicate and see how it looks. Something like this maybe. It looks a bit more like a clown now, so no, I don't like it. So I get rid of it again. So this is basically everything we need for our game. Now we need to make sure that all these textures. Something is missing here, I don't know. Maybe I'm gonna make something on it. something is missing. So sometimes you just need to play around with that. All you designers out there, you know what I mean. Maybe I'm gonna make a I don't know. Gonna align them. This one as well. Maybe bring it a bit more to the side. Oh, this is something extra, I would say, so I'm not quite sure if that makes anyhow sense. But, well, why not? We could also make it look like a cone. So it might have some spikes on the backside. Or, yeah, maybe. Let's try. So I can Control D this one. Gonna slim down, make it a bit darker. And I could once again just put in some kind of a highlight over here, so it would look like a cone. How does that work? Is we can just simply do the same technique as we did before. We just take this piece to the side, but in here we have some special. We can just split the actual circle at any point. I'm not quite sure which one. Maybe the circle one. We could just, split it here. We can say we want to cut it like a cake and do, well, yeah, we want to do a cone, right? So we can just say we want to take this cone piece, make it a bit darker. And now we just need to extend it or make it a bit, longer. So the center piece is going to be like there, so it looks a bit more like 3D-ish effect, I would say. So we have multiple possibilities to do that. Probably the easiest one is just scale up. Maybe we lose as we can see, we may lose the illusion a bit here and there, and maybe we lose the shape a bit. But you get the idea. Can also do this, use a highlight for this one. So instead of making it darker, we can also make it a bit brighter. Might look good, might not. Well, all however you please and like. We could also use a, let's say, gradient, but we need to do this one with a circle. For example, we can say, okay, we want to do this one bright outside and dark inside. Or vice versa, we say we want to do a darker outside but a brighter inside. Give it a bit more punch, maybe. And do it through the actual positioning over here. We can maybe also manipulate how much light is going from A to B. Something maybe like this. Well, doesn't really look nice. What if I take this away? Oh, maybe I'm gonna keep it this way. If I want to make it even more 3D, again, I can put in some kind of a shadow below it. Just make it black and a fill and bring it down. And once up. Just don't overdo it, just a bit. And then we say we reduce opacity again to like 50%. Once again, we don't know if that looks good or not, or I don't know if that looks good or not. But no, it looks like there are like balls, like billiard or something like that, balls on top of that. Looks a bit 3D-ish, has maybe a nice effect, we don't know, I don't know, but I believe that's better than nothing. Now I guess we are done with the graphics, so I just now try to export it the best way I can. So first things first, you can get rid of the grid lines if you don't need them anymore, or you just save your data and disable them. I want to make so that when we export it to Unity, we need to make space. Space means if I put a square around it, I need to make sure that none of the graphics are going to intersect the other ones. Same for the bottom piece. We want to make sure that this dashed line is not intersecting inside the body. And if you want to go for animation later on, for example for the foot, then you want to just drag them outside. But maybe not the whole. So I'm gonna ungroup this one pretty quick, deselect the whole, group again, and bring outside the leg. Same for the other side, ungroup, get rid of the whole, group again, and bring this one outside. So if we want to, we can now put in bones and stuff, or we can just animate them onto the pivot point, stick that later on back together, and can animate the foot. Like one is going forwards, one is going backwards, just by a simple rotation, nothing fancy, nothing too much hard over here. If you want to go for more animation, or if you want to do something with the antennas, you want to rip them apart as well, and later on stick them back together, so you can put in bones, so you can do some light, or let's say slight movement to them. To do that, you just ungroup pretty quick here and here, object, ungroup. We don't want to have the shadows, we just want to have this 3 parts, we drag them outside, and these 3 parts. If we also want to clean up a bit, we can combine these 2 passes just by union them. Same here, pass, union. If you want to handle shadows later on its own or on their own, you have the possibility to do so. With these 2 pieces outside, we are allowed to reposition them and also animate them, even using the bone system in Unity. So our texture atlas is now complete. To save space, we can also rearrange the things a bit here and there, completely up to us. Now what we want to do is we want to export the PNG. We want only these files. And to do so, we just say hit export, and we navigate to the folder where all our stuff has to go. So I do this as well. I have created already an empty project, and I want to have here a create new folder, and I just call this one textures. You can name the sprites or whatever you please and like, basically all the same stuff. And in here I want to put my creature, my body pieces. If I later on figure out that something is not in the mood or in the color, I just need to override it. Just need to make sure that I take the same sizes later on, otherwise I need to recut pieces probably. So I go into my folder now. You cannot see this, it's on my other screen, which is okay, I guess. I just try to find my caterpillar to the assets texture, and then I just name this one caterpillar. No idea if I type it right, but it doesn't matter. Then I hit export, and now I have a super small image, so I want to make it a bit bigger so I have a bit more quality. So height 1500 pixels. Gonna select it and override it. And in here we should see our caterpillar image cut in pieces already. If we want to use the sprite editor, for example, like the skinning editor later on, we have the possibility to do so. But for now, we can just say we want to keep it as is. We just want to cut the pieces apart. So like we want to slice them. But to slice them, we need to make sure that instead of using sprite single mode, we want to use multiple. And apply the changes, open the sprite editor again, go to slice. And then we can say delete existing slicing methods, which is absolutely fine. Now we should have all the pieces separated from each other. Pretty good. And apply. We can also rename them, and we can also already try to fiddle out what a good point, like rotation point, would be when we later on go for, for a rotation and stuff. Since that is a 2D game, later on, that probably makes sense. So now we have the head, the antennas, the feet or foot, then the body piece and the tail. So the next thing is we need to define and decide how we want to set this one up, since again this is a 2D game. So, and since that is a 2D game, we need to steer the head, and everything else needs to follow where the head went or where the head goes. So the first thing we are starting with is, before we do anything else, we build our creature. So we can take our caterpillar. Once again, we can later on go and animate literally anything. And this is our first piece. The other pieces, like the antenna, for example, we can make this child of it if we want to. And same for the other one. Once again, you can rename that things. And then we got the other piece, which is the backside, which should fit here kind of as well. So this is how we start to be inside our game later on. So, and probably we have a body piece already, I don't know. We don't know. But what we can test is the tinting of the body piece. So as we can tell, this has a color which is white. But if I make it red, you can see it overrides the actual white and gray pieces, but it keeps the gradients responsible. So we can make it blue, green, whatever, and we still have this gradient since we were creating it so that it is using a grayscale from white to gray. So keep that in mind if you want to use colors later on for character design, for a character or hair. If you have like a character which has a different, or you want to make it so that you can pick like from 5 hair colors or 10 or whatever, or any from the complete color palette, then you just need to make sure that your character's hair is going to be black and white or gray and white so people can tint it on their own. If we would do the same thing to a green piece, for example, it would mix or blend the colors into each other. So if we try to put a blue on it, it is literally impossible to put a blue on top of it, because it will always use multiply, as you can see, multiply to assign the actual colors. So we don't want to do this, we just want to do this for the body piece. So next thing is we want to go and do some coding, and we want to define how we want to actually code this. So we're gonna have our head. The head is going to be our controller, or we need to define what is going to be the controller. And also we need to bring things down, make it a bit smaller. So I'm gonna load pretty quick my setup and my scene. So if that should be a good, let's say, good size, because it's a kids game. Probably it is what kids may want to see, like huge and nice graphics, let's say. Speaking of graphics, if you are still in here, you might want to create a simple apple and maybe a cherry or something the kids can pick up. So we can go super simple. Maybe I'm gonna go and make a red apple. And we can be, as how much we like. We can make an apple round or not and play around with all these things. So first thing is I want to make this one a object. I can manipulate and give it some, let's say, unroundish shapes. Maybe here and there. And in the center is going to be like a dark area. Where the apple's thing is coming out, like the trunk or whatever it's called, or the trunk. So we can go down with opacity, we can increase blur maybe a bit here and there. We can also put in some extra highlights on the top of the apple. We can also use our little pen tool again, and we can say, okay, we want to have something brighter over here. We need to go a bit down and make it blurry. Okay, since once again we are seeing the apple from the top, right? Because this caterpillar is going to be on top as well. Now I need the tree trunk or something, or the apple trunk, so which sticks out from the center. It's a bit laggy when you zoom in, so be careful. Maybe I'm gonna bring this a bit more up. But maybe put something on top. So maybe this is a bright brown, this is a bit darker brown. And on here we can also put a leaf, and on here we can also put a gradient again. Oh, we need to take this lid piece here. So how do we do this? Well, same thing. We just, put a straight downwards blend. Go with a darker brown over there. But we want to make sure that we use a straight gradient. So again, this one here is maybe darker brown. This other one is a bit brighter brown. And this one here just shares the same brown, or it's even a bit brighter. Something like that. If we want to do shadow again, we can. We just Control D, bring this maybe here. I would just maybe rotate, make it black, bring it down, and make it a bit, combine them too, pass, union. Maybe get rid of the outline. It's okay. And we decrease the opacity by 50% or something. So the apple gets, again, like a 3D-ish look. Now we're gonna do the same thing for a leaf, which I would put somewhere here maybe. So in this case, we just, start maybe here, make the base of the leaf, and let it hang down, let's say from here to here. Once again, I just go for the leaf middle, centerpiece, whatever. And now you can make it whatever you please and like. Next one is I want to go from this point and, make the leaf shape literally complete. If I'm not 100% able to pop onto a specific position, I just can go and, rearrange that. I believe I need a point here just to make it a bit more swingy. I can also put another one here to make it a bit more swingy here. And I could also go and cut away some pieces I don't need, as an example. Important is that this one is going to be below this other piece over there. And now we can again do some gradients. I would go from bright to, since that is going to hang down, to dark. But I take both at the same time now. Gotta make sure that I use a straight one. And over here I want to have like a darkish green. Maybe a bit darker. And here I want a bit brighter. So it's like, it's like it is highlighted in any way. Maybe I'm gonna go and put an extra highlight in the center. Interestingly, this one didn't got it, so I'm gonna try to refit it in here as well. Maybe we can make this one a bit darker here. And the last thing you want to do is probably again for, visuals, put the shadow like below that. So duplicate the complete leaf, like so. Make it all dark or black. Combine them if you want to. Pass union. Make it downwards until it's below the leaf. And maybe rotate it a bit. Maybe like so. And reduce alpha to 50%, or in this case opacity. And hit enter. Rearrange if needed until you are happy. Doesn't look too shabby, I would say. It needs a bit more, but I believe you know how it goes and how it works. So basically you can put in more things into the leaf itself. Maybe I'm gonna go into the gradient. I barely I can barely touch that gradient. It doesn't let me add an extra point. Double click. Maybe I'm gonna try and make another something here, just to see if that makes a difference. I also try without an outline, but without outline doesn't work. Okay, that looks good. Maybe I'm gonna make these two line shapes or stroke styles to be a bit more roundish, so it's not like this spiky. Let's see if that makes a difference. Yep, it does. Pretty good. So there we go. And if we want to, or if we would like to, we could also go and duplicate even that and maybe make another leaf somewhere else. For example, here we can bring it a bit lower and make it part of the trunk as well, or we can just put it onto the other side. Let's see how it looks. Nope, that's totally wrong. So I guess I'm fine with that apple. So what I want to do is I want to export it so we can pick it up and eat it. And once again, feel free to create more apples and bananas and whatever. Just make sure that the look direction is going to look correct. Maybe I'm gonna give it back the outline, so everything is back outlined later on. So the style is going to be always the same. Now I go and export it into my project. I don't need the graphics later on, it's just for this one project, but I want you to understand that it is important that you're gonna go and create the graphics on your own, because nobody knows how you want this to look. So gonna put this into my caterpillar 2D assets textures, and I can just name it pickup or apple or whatever. If you have later on an atlas of multiple fruits, feel free to add them. So I hit export and I should be able to see apple in the textures folder. There we go. So I can now also drag this wherever I want to and can see you know, if I stay in size, if that is big enough or not. And the cool thing is you can always go and play maximized and see and check if how the graphics literally would look. So currently it's a rather bad scale over here, so I would go for a 10 by 16 or 16 by 9 or 16 by 10 screen. So it's going to be a bit bigger and we can see a better effect probably. So, and depending on compression later on, these graphics are going to be, look better or not. So pickups later on are rather simple. We just add a collider and pick it up. So this is the smallest issue. The biggest issue is going to be now our caterpillar, its tail, and all the other pieces connected to it. For the two caterpillar antlers here, or the actual antennas, we want to make sure that the render order is, I believe, higher than the other piece, like the piece below. As you can see, the order in layer is now 1. We can see this. The body is order in layer 0, so we could not see the other two objects, which were, even if they are hierarchically, below it, they still get rendered at the same time. So one or the other is, impossible to see at the current runtime. So that's why I just lifted that up by using order in layer. Now when you're happy with the result, you're gonna make a small break, as I do. I'm gonna give a small drink and I'm back in a moment. Okay, so let's continue. Now we need to start coding, because this is what we need. We want to have some movement in which we are able to rotate the head in any direction. So we need to define how we want to do this. Do we want to use like arrow keys or something? Like meanwhile we hit the arrow keys, we just rotate over, let's say, an angle, or a negative or positive angle, or do just some rotate around and something, whatever. So that's what we want to define first. At the same time, we want to move this thing forward. So we can, always define where's the forward axis of an object. This is the most important thing over here. Like, is this the z-axis? Is this the x-axis? Is it the y-axis? Which axis is that? And to tell which one it is, we need to make sure that we first off go to the move tool. So when we select it, we see some axis over here. If we would go into 3D mode by that and double click the caterpillar, we're gonna see that this one is going to look upwards. So the z-axis is showing into the camera. So our forward axis would not be the z-axis like transform.forward. It would be the transform.up probably is going to be our forward axis. So whenever we do a rotation on this object, like so, the forward-looking axis would always be the up axis, because that is the y-axis, literally, as you can tell over here. Why is that important? Because this object now needs to move always forward, no matter what direction it is, or it has. What we want to do is we first off want to create a new script. We name this one, I don't know, you can name it player if you want to, you can name it caterpillar. Later on we also have something like body parts or something. And we want to apply this to the body, to the head. Just so we can see if that is going to do some reaction. Also, what we later on need is a circle collider, so whenever we hit an apple, or we want to eat an apple, that we can. If you don't like the camera view to be blue, you can always go and pick any other color which maybe fits our scenario. And later on we can also add some leaves and stuff like that, just for beautiful things, like for the feeling of the. We can also do some shadows of trees if there would be, if you need something like that, and doing animations, all that things. So what we want to do is we want to open the caterpillar script, or the head script, and what we want to do is we want to know if the forward axis is the upward axis. Currently I'm using Visual Studio Code, which is rather simple to use. We don't need all of the stuff over here, but it's necessary to have this one open, so keep that just where it is. So make sure when you're using Visual Code or Visual Studio or whatever that your mono behavior, this text is going to be not white. It has to be blue or any other tint, but not white. So everything like autocomplete and stuff like that is working 100% with Unity. This is important. So in our update loop, we want to constantly move forward. We don't need to use update, but for testing purposes, it's the easiest one over here. To do that, we want to translate our actual character here. So we use transform.translate with a big T, like this. And now we can say, okay, how do we want to translate this? What is the vector3 translation? So I believe there is no vector2 translation. But there's an XYZ translation. We can split it if we want to, but we can also multiply that by speed parameters, something like that. So since we don't have a speed parameter, we can just say maybe just a private float and name it speed. And so later on we can manipulate speed if we want to. Since it is a private variable, we might want to go and give it some number like 2f or 10f or 5. We need to play around with these later on. So how do we want to translate this? We want to translate this using a new vector or any kind of a vector. So we can say new vector 3. Because again, translation happens only in vector 3 space. We cannot directly use vector 2. So we don't want to touch x. Basically, maybe a bit better is we want to use transform.up. Multiply that by, let's say, speed, and then we can also say times time to delta time, I guess. No, not time, but dot delta time, which is literally a game or runtime. Speed is not accessible, which is funny, and maybe I rename my script. If you rename scripts, make sure that the name of the script and the class are similar 100%. I believe it couldn't work because the project is called like that. I don't know why, but doesn't matter. You can also name this one a head or body or whatever. As we are missing the script now in here, we just need to re-add it. And if I now press play, we should see that this thing, this head, is moving anywhere. And it was moving upwards, which means the up translation is correct. Since it is a bit too fast, I'm gonna slow it way more down. It should be a kids game, so we want to make sure that kids are able to play that. So for the moment, we just start with 1 and try to translate this once again and see how the translation works. This is not rigid body-based movement, so it's not like using physics and stuff. So it's just moving slowly in a direction. What we want to do is, if we play the game and we rotate the head, for example, like if I would select it and rotate it, like in any direction, we should hopefully see that the movement is going to be always in the forward direction. Like, for example, if I do it like this, it should go and follow in the nose direction. If that does not match and does not work 1%, which it doesn't, then we need to use a different way to move things. So what does mean is basically what we could do is we could still use the forward axis, but then we need to make the camera look downwards in the scene, and the objects needs to be like 50%, you know, 90 degrees rotated here as well. Now we need to define how we want to move the head's direction. But for the moment, yeah, why not? We just need to steer the head anyhow, so we can rotate it over its center point when we do this inputs. So what we can do is we can use input like the keyboard. I just use the old input system, so I just use keyboard or get key down. Actually get key, because meanwhile we hold down a key. We wanna do send whatever. Like now we need to define which key. I believe it's called something like arrow. Key code dot arrow. Let's say left arrow. We wanna do something. Like meanwhile we hold this one down. And then we got another one. Literally an else if. And in here we want to do the right arrow. We don't want to do anything else but that, at least for the moment. So I'm gonna put in the right arrow. What we want to do, of course, is rotate by a different angle. Meanwhile, we hold down the key. So we want to rotate over the current, what is it? We want to translate over the forward axis to rotate in a circle while holding down. To do that, well, we probably have multiple possibilities. We can just say transform dot rotate. we can also rotate around a specific point and the direction by a degree angle multiplied by a speed. Let's try rotate around. Meanwhile, we hold down, we want to rotate around a point, which is transform.up, probably. And then we want to have some kind of an axis in which direction we want to rotate this one. No, actually that's what we need. First we need to have transform.position as our point. Then the axis is going to be the up axis. So transform.up. No, it's not up, it's the forward axis because the Z value currently looks upwards. Then we have the float angle. So in here we can do something like, for the moment we can just say time.delta time. So we increase by play time. We can multiply this by any speed value if we want to. I believe so. Float, rotation speed. And let's say it's 2. So we can say here rotation speed times time.delta time. So we can later on manipulate how fast. We can also slow it down by 0.5 or 2.5 or something. And we can, by the way, do this for the other side as well. And here I would just say, since we don't know the angle, we just say we want to do here the negative rotation speed and here the positive. Maybe if that doesn't work, then we need to negate the forward axis. So one or the other is going to be correct. Well, that's what I assume. So since I use the arrow keys now, we can also use A and D if we want to, but arrow keys probably a bit closer for the moment. So if I hit right or hold down right, you can see it rotates slightly, but it's not really fast. So what I want to do is I want to increase rotation speed to, let's say, something like 20, and I want to do negate to the opposite. So when I hit the right key, I want to do negative rotation speed and vice versa. Want to have positive speed maybe on the left arrow. So again, I hit play. And now if I hit the right key, the direction, the forward translation seems to be incorrect. So it does the translation, but it doesn't do it as the arrow is going to pop or show. Gonna show you what I mean. So this, it seems that the sprite itself, it doesn't move correctly. So now I have like a 90 degrees turn, but it moves downwards now. Usually it should be that, but I can try to use vector3.up, which is actually not the correct one. Why not? Because the actual vector-based movement is based on world space coordinates, and the transform is going to go and use, well, usually the local transform. But using vector3.up instead of transform.up now gives me the correct translation. Why ever? I have no idea. Okay, so rotation is still a bit too wonky, a bit too slow. Well, maybe I'm right, maybe I'm wrong, I don't know. Let the compiler run, try again, see if the rotation now is a bit more, a bit quicker. That looks good, pretty nice. So we don't go straight, we don't go too fast, but now we are able to steer at least the head into one or the other direction. And we translate forward inside the direction of the actual green arrow. Okay, so we have the base done now. What we now need is we need to know when we pick up that we want to add body pieces to the head, like literally in between, and also the tail needs to follow the actual body or the head at the first place, and then later on it's like it has to be in some kind of a list. So we need to add the tail piece to a list, and the body pieces later on need to be in the list as well. The tail always needs to be the last piece, so we need to rearrange list whenever we pick up an apple. Of course, we cannot eat ourselves yet, but that's a different story. So we need to fiddle out now how we can make sure that when we move and pick up an apple, that's what we want to do first. We want to pick an apple, that we add a body piece to our body. To do that, we're gonna add a collision check. So on trigger enter. If we trigger an apple, we want to add a new body piece to a list of body pieces, or all the pieces. What I want to do here is also I want to add the tail piece, which is already there. But I don't just want to simply put this hierarchy in the backside. I just want to make it so that it is its own object, but it's still handled by a list. And to do so, we first off need to know what is our piece. So we're gonna say it's a game object. It's our tail piece over here. We need to drag it from the scene onto like wherever we start with the creature, or we just instantiate it. We have two possibilities, and position this at the correct place. What I also want to do is I want to create a list. It literally doesn't have to be public, of type game object. So all the other tail pieces we want them to be following the base game object like the head. But each of the tail pieces is not looking on its own. It always has to look, and not always on the head, it has to look on its piece which is in front, like in the hierarchy, like its own position -1. Until it reaches the head. So this is going to be literally the complete caterpillar pieces. We need to define it to be a new list of type game object, open close parentheses, close the line with a semicolon. So in start we want to add the actual object into this, so everybody can look to it. This is the first piece, and the last piece is going to be the tail piece. We want to add this onto the tail as well. So first we're gonna say caterpillar pieces dot add. So we want to add something to the list, and then this one we want to just say a game object. So the current game object of this one, where this piece sits on. Also, what we want to add is caterpillar.add, open close parentheses, and then here we want to take the tail piece like this. maybe I have, maybe I cannot stream totally completely correct. I'm gonna test something. Okay, that sounds okay. YouTube just says it doesn't get enough data to stream correctly, so I'm not quite sure what that means. So if there are any issues later on, I may see that later on. I don't know. So now I added the actual current piece as well as the tail piece to the list of objects. If I want to check if that works, I can just make this one public or a serialized object, so we can always see this here in the list on the actual game object itself. So when I select it, I should have this list, and if I now press play, this list should at first contain the caterpillar _1 and then the caterpillar _6 if it is available. And since there is no object in here, I just have to drag it into, press again. I need to maybe rename it to be tail. And once again, it can also be done by just using an object like a prefab. So as you can see now, we have these two pieces inside our caterpillar list, which is fine. Now every part except the first one, like element 0, has to look in front and see where to go. It's literally something where the back side or the back piece or whichever the piece is needs to move in the same speed as the base body, and always needs to move into the direction of the piece in front of it. So it also has to take in consideration that it needs to rotate into the correct direction. But first off, let's do the pickup, since we want to pick up an apple to get a new piece. So in on-trigger enter, we want to check for a collider. I believe so. We can just name it other. And then here we can just say if other, we can compare a tag, for example. We can say other.compare tag. We can see if this tag is apple or pickup. Pickup is probably a bit better, since we might have multiple pickups with multiple things to be picked up. So we can later on also do some other comparisons on this point. So gonna make a big U here, pick up. If that is the case, we want to eat the apple on collision, which is so if that we pick this one up, we destroy the apple, and of course we want to add a new body piece. Add new piece. And also, once again, we can later on check what the color of the apple is and something like that. So to do this, we need to know the game object, which has to be once again a prefab, since we need to instantiate this instead of just having it there like available already. So this is going to be a body piece. Literally, it's a prefab. You could also name this one body piece prefab. What we want to do is we want to instantiate a new body piece at wherever. We need to define what the distance has to be. Once we have instantiated, we want to add this body piece, the new body piece, into the list. To do that, we need to store the game object data. We can name this new body is equal to instantiate, and probably we have to typecast this into a game object, so we just do it just in case. And then here we now can add the new body piece into the list, but we want to make sure that we don't hit it at the back side. So we first off need to take away the last piece, like do an in-between store, and then we need to have to add it back to it, I believe so. So when we, otherwise it would be just It would be there, but it would be at the wrong position. So we need to take it out or delete it and then put it back into it. Or we just reinstantiate the tail piece and delete the tail literally afterwards. So it might be better to make the tail piece also a prefab. So we can just delete the last object. So we can say delete tail. So in that case we can just say, since we need to get rid of it, we go into the caterpillar pieces list. Literally we say delete first, not delegate, but delete, or destroy in this case. We go into the caterpillar pieces list. We're gonna take the last piece over here, which is going to be caterpillar pieces dot count -1. This is the position, and we wanna destroy the game object. Basically, since that is of type game object already, we don't need to do this. So we want to destroy this caterpillar last piece. Then we want to add the body, I believe. Add body piece, the new one. So we can say caterpillar pieces dot add, and here we just say new body. I don't know about the positioning. And then we want to re-add the tail to wherever. We just need to define a distance between the last piece and the current piece. So if it is a tail, it might have a different distance, because it might be like the center point might be more far away or closer to the point and so on. For re-adding the tail, we just again need to create a new tail. I'm gonna just name a tail piece. Once again, this is not done correct. New tail. And now we want to re-add this one to the list. So we can say caterpillar pieces dot add, and we want to add the new tail. Like so. We want to do the same thing at the very start, since the tail piece over here might not be in the scene already. So we just need to create or instantiate a new tail piece, and then we want to add it to the list. Gonna save that. There are a bunch of typos, but that's fine. So this is basically whenever we pick up an apple, we can, by the way, when all of that is done, we can also say destroy other .game object. So it's gone. I mean, I'm not 1% sure if that works, but it should. Maybe there's a bit delay or something, or maybe it doesn't work. Then we need to do it directly on the object when it gets hit by, by the caterpillar. All of that is possible. We can, by the way, also add score later on and so on. So something like we should keep in mind, add score if needed. Add score. Save. So then we destroy the apple. Destroy pickup. And that's fine. In here, we just now need to define what an apple is, and that the apple is going to be a pickable object. We need to define it to be a pickup, because otherwise we might intersect or have any issues with other colliders in the scene. So we need to make sure that we only eat pickups. So I'm going to add a new tag. Go here to add list and name this one pickup. We need to be sure that the typos are, or we don't have any typos. Then we select this one again and tag it being pickup. And then we add a circle collider to it. Circle collider to D. It should resize automatically to the size of my apple. Even if I scale this one up and down, should be the same thing. And what we also need is a rigid body component, otherwise it doesn't react to anything. But we need rigid body to D. We need to make sure that this one has no gravity, so gravity scale is equal to 0. Not quite sure what simulated means. Is the body be simulated if not effectively hidden from the simulation? Well, no idea. But we want to make sure that there are no angular drags and stuff like that. So whenever now our head would have a collider, it would be able to eat the apple. So I want this apple to be order in layer, let's say -1. So whenever I drag the head over the apple, you're gonna see that that we don't have any issues with the apple itself. Like so, it is like below the head of the caterpillar. So last thing is this caterpillar now needs to have also a rigid body 2D component, as well as, well, no, not a rigid body, it doesn't need to be, but what it needs is a circle collider. If you don't like the circle collider to be as big, because you might not want to eat on the side over here, we can rearrange that, so we can make it smaller. So we want to only eat an apple when it is close to the mouse area, for example. So it doesn't eat it here or here. Maybe you can also use a polygon collider, so you can, or an edge collider, which would be even more precise, I guess. So when we now go there, of course there will be a bunch of errors popping up into the console, but if my head hits the apple, at least it pushes this away. Why? Because the circle collider over here on this apple is not a trigger, so we need to make sure this is a trigger. Don't forget to save the scene sometimes in between. Control S for quick save. And now we should eat the apple, because now the rigid body has the trigger component, but it doesn't react. So to make sure everything works, we want to make sure that we are triggering the pickup. To do so, we just simply put a debug line, debug.log, and then we're gonna put in just something simple, something like apple eaten. Well, that's what it should do when it reacts and when it acts correctly. Don't forget to save. And now let's see if that collision happens and we are literally able to eat the apple. So let's see if that triggers. Maybe I have a typo somewhere. So it doesn't trigger the actual pickup. So if other.compare tag pickup. Maybe I test who I'm hitting before I actually check what I hit. If there is something I do hit. Maybe I just forgot something. So debug.log other got hit. Actually we can say other.name, so we know exactly if we hit the apple or whatever we have hit, if we hit it. But make sure that you do this before you do any comparison app stuff, so you instantly move into NC. Maybe I didn't save something, or I don't know, we'll see in a moment. Okay, so it seems that it doesn't react, so no, not the apple. The apple does not react to the collision. And oh, probably because the caterpillar 2D is not using a trigger as well, because the apple doesn't care. It's more the body piece which should care if it is a trigger collider. No collision happening. Let me do this one not being a trigger, just to see what's happening. Maybe I need another rigid body for my caterpillar, but I don't think so, but maybe I'm wrong. So we're gonna put in a rigid body 2D. We get rid of the gravity scale, 0, and try again. Probably there's something I don't get. Maybe it has to do something with order and layer, which has nothing to do with it. At least it is not about the this one is order and layer -1, and this one is not -1. But let's see if that maybe changes. I don't know. Nope, it's not about that. So I'm gonna change this one back to be 0. Why is the apple not being picked up? Collision is only for on trigger, actually not on trigger enter, but on collision enter, so collider should be correct. That's interesting. I just check it out. Maybe I have a typo. Oh, it is on trigger 2D, that's why. So on trigger enter is for 3D. We need to define on trigger enter 2D and probably also collider 2D, I'm not quite sure. So now we should be able to do at least some comparison. I'm not working too much into 2D, it seems, so I don't get, yeah, sometimes I just miss pieces. As you can see, we have circle collider 2D and rigid body 2D, and so the collider, like the on trigger enter on and so on, all these functions, all these functions need to be named correct. So as we can see, the apple got hit. I don't know where the got hit functions come from. Then we got apple got hit. Oh, it is the first one. Then the apple should be eaten. And then we get the unassigned reference exception, which is for, because we don't have a body piece being instantiatable, like we don't have a prefab to do this. And same for the tail piece, we don't have the tail piece to be instantiated. So we need to create them pretty quick. So this one, I can also rename this to be tail piece. And what we need is probably something like a folder called prefabs. Prefab is nothing else than a template. So we take the tail piece, we need the apple, and now we also need a body piece. And since I resized the body piece, or actually all the pieces, I just take the actual scale from here and put it over there and all the 3 axes, and it should kind of match. Well, it does match here. Probably it matches here as well. So this tail piece, or this caterpillar body piece, so I'm gonna rename this to be body piece. And go into my prefabs folder and just, you know, put it in. Before I do that, I want to add the 2 foot or feet to the body piece. So the left one, or legs, left leg, well, it should be the left leg. Yep. And then we got the right leg. So if we once again later on want to animate this, we can do so by just using simple rotations over the pivot point. Just to make sure, I might want to go pretty quick into the sprite editor and make sure that this sprite here, its pivot point has somewhere here. And same for this one, that the pivot point might be here, and apply. So when we later on want to rotate over a specific point, that it is using the pivot point. Well, that's what I hope. If that should be, literally should be the local rotation point, but, well, it doesn't care about this over here. So we later on, well, we need to define maybe some extra objects which are holding these positions. So I gonna make them, since they are child, I'm gonna make them 1, 1, 1. So they might be the correct size. Somewhere here. And once again, we can always go and take color picker and pick any color we like to. Or we just leave it as it is, white. We can make it black or red or whichever color we prefer. So in prefabs, we now take the complete body piece, drag it in, and that's basically it. These two need to have order in layer 1, so they need to be up on top. And since we did a change, we go to overrides and apply all. So the foot are above, like render-wise, above the body piece. So now we got all the 3 pieces, so we should be able to get rid of them. And in here we should be able to put all of the necessary pieces, like the tail piece and the other pieces, into the list over there. To do so, we first off need to make sure that all of them are public. So the tail piece we got here, I'm gonna put it there. The body piece, and then we got the list about caterpillar pieces, like every piece in general. So we got the tail and the body piece. Here's going to be the caterpillar pieces. So we get rid of the body piece here and the tail piece as well. And we put them now into the corresponding pieces. So the tail and the body. So when we now press start, the tail piece should be, created anywhere, probably in the center of the screen. Okay, it just got created on its own old position, and we have seen once we ate the apple, the body piece got created as well. At the same position, literally. You can see now. So now we got the tail piece, which is here, and the body piece got instantiated once we ate the apple. The apple got destroyed. So, pretty good so far. Now, what we want to do is, since we just instantiate them at any position, like literally on the stored position, which is anywhere on screen, we want to make it so that they always spawn relative to the rotation of the last piece in the list, and keep on track and the position, far away from the center point of the body piece or of the last piece. So basically, if it is a head, then it might have a higher distance than, anything else, like a body piece, for example. Maybe not. So to that's what I wanted to know, is if the list is going to be created correctly, like the list of the caterpillar pieces. The first one should be the head. Then we got caterpillar 1 and tail. And now, what now happened is it creates a missing object because we were deleting the object, but we didn't got rid of the last element in the list. Then we added the body piece, then the tail piece. So this is basically correct, but there's one empty spot. And we want to make sure that we get rid of the last spot in the list as well. So we want to remove the last entry before we add another piece over there. So in here we get rid of the tail and destroy or remove the last index of the list. So we can say caterpillar pieces dot remove, and we want to remove not an object but maybe an index. Let's see if we find a complete list over there of possibilities. Okay, we need to remove it first, it seems, but that doesn't make sense either, since we have two things. First off, we want to remove it from the list, but at the same time, we want to make sure that we get rid of it completely, so we don't... Or we could remove it from the list. No, that's a bad thing. Bad idea. But like, what we could do is we re-add it back and reposition it back based on the body piece created beforehand, so depending on what the current direction of the previous body piece is going to be. So to get rid of the tail, we first off could just catch it. So we say, okay, we store the information about the last tail piece somewhere, then we remove it from the list, and then we destroy the object. Or we might be able to remove an index, so caterpillar pieces dot, I don't know, count -1. Which means instead of remove, we would need to remove add an index. Yep. So we remove just add an index. So we destroy that, and then we remove add an index, and the index is caterpillar pieces dot count -1. Yep. Since why -1? It is the count is the amount of elements inside the list, but since we start to count at 0 and not at 1, we need to define it so, or we need to make sure that we started, reduce the last number, because the highest index is always one smaller than the total length or the total size of the list. That's why we need to do this. Let's see if that was okay and is fine, and our list is going to be completely correctly created. Pretty good. So the empty spot at the last piece, after we were deleting it, the missing piece over there, got like this entry has been deleted as well, and afterwards we were adding the body piece, and then back we were adding the tail piece. Awesome. So now I want to see how I can make it so that all the body pieces are going to follow, as well as how we can make it so that they are keeping position and rotation based on, well, yeah, the question is based on what? Maybe there's also a distance difference between the head and the body pieces, but that's what I want to know first. What we can use is probably something like we want to move towards a point from a desired, some kind of a desired position, and we literally loop through. The question is every body piece doing that, or is the complete caterpillar doing that? And I believe the complete caterpillar piece can be doing that, because we know all the pieces over here. So, and if we have different sizes, we probably need to change, some distances in between, if it is a tail piece or not. but then we can implement these extra, I guess. So we could say in update or in a coroutine, same thing with that. We don't need to use update except for the inputs, but the pure translation usually is able to be done inside a coroutine, like the full translation literally. So what can we do? We first off want to create a new function, so we want to keep everything, you know, on its own. We want to use multiple functions to, let's say, move the body parts, like each single body part, because literally all the body parts needs to be that. Loop throw, move the tail. Basically, that's what it is. We call this function from update later on as well. But we can create something like we can set a distance between two parts. So the first distance is going to be before, like the distance between the head and the next piece by using the body spacing, depending on how high that is. And so we have literally two spots which are probably having a different distance to the next object or something like that. For the other pieces, we're gonna take the current body part and see what the previous body part is going to be, and we can try to set a distance by using the body part spacing or something like that. So it keeps always the distance kind of in between them and move towards the next position of the previous body part. So it's always trying to follow it, and at the same time we could try to let's say look at the previous part. Like whoever is in front of us, we need to look at him, so we always see where he's going to move. I'm not quite sure if that works, but we'll see. But that's the actual idea I have. So let's create another helper function. Before I do the body piece, it's going to be maybe something like we want to set the distance. We want to set the distance from one position to another position, and by a, let's say, set or a desired distance, I would say. So a distance between two pieces have to be this and that, so they are literally working flawlessly, hopefully. So we can use maybe a transform, and let's say we have a point A or piece A, and we have another transform, not a tracked reference, another transform form point B. I'm gonna explain in a moment what they could be. And then something like a desired, or say distance. Basically, it's a desired distance. It's like how or what would be the distance where we want to keep them apart from each other. Yeah, let's say desired distance. If that works, once again, we're gonna take a look and see if that makes sense at all or not. So because we may or may not. Well, first off, we need to measure the current distance. So float current distance between the 2 points. We want to keep them always at a correct spot, right? So we want to set this one, or we want to measure that one first. We can use vector 3 or vector 2, basically doesn't matter, I guess. Vector 3 dot distance. We want to measure the distance between point A and point B. That's basically what we want. And we will store this into the current distance. But since it's using vectors, we need to say dot position. So point B A position dot point B position. Now we wanna know if how much more or less is needed to fulfill the aspect of being at the corresponding position. So let me name this one, yeah, the aspect or something. The aspect is, once again, is the point between the desired position and the current actual position. So, and if there is a distance between, or a difference between the two, then we want to make sure that we give it a bit more push, maybe. So the desired distance. So what we do is we just measure is the distance, or the actual current distance, and negated by desired distance. Now we want to do a translation. So we want to set now point A, whatever point A is at the moment, its position, we want to set its position to, and now we want to move it by using vector3.move towards. We want to move towards a point from A dot position, or point A dot position, comma, to point B dot position by the aspect. So whatever the aspect is. The aspect is again a difference, like a positive or negative number or value between the distance and the desired distance. So we just set a distance. Why there's this async, I don't know. So we want to set a distance. We want to set the distance. We can set the distance depending on what the desired distance has to be, and then we'll move towards it. So we're constantly calling set distance over there. We need to do this by every body part. So first off, we need to say the position A, which is probably our head at the first place. We need to take the first part, the head, and set the second piece, like point B, which is going to be the second body part in this case, to a desired distance. So the desired distance is going to be, we need to measure that, like the distance between the two, and see what a good number is going to be. So probably we need to reposition that a bit vice versa. So maybe we don't move point A to point B, but maybe vice versa, like we don't set position A, but maybe we set position B later on. We'll see. So what we want to do, what I want to do now is at the very first, I want to make it so that when I move my creature at the very first place, that the tail, which is the second piece in my body list, I want to make it so that this is going to follow the head. The tail should follow the head without eating anything. The second piece over there, or whatever, has to be there, so I get the correct spacing between the actual body parts, pieces, whatever. So let me try that first. We want to call in the actual, we want to set the actual distance from where? We got our caterpillar pieces, and we take the index 0, which is our head. And now we now we want to make sure that the second piece, like the second piece over there, is going to, maybe we don't even need this. Because yeah, let me don't do this. Let me not do this. Let me make a for loop. This one. What do we want to do? We don't want to move the head to something, but we want to know what the previous piece is and to look at it. So we want to take, literally look backwards. So probably we're going to do this, as I said, we take the current body piece and take a look onto the previous body piece and see what the difference should be or has to be. And we can define probably to read from the index. In this list, I want to go and start with the index 1. And I'm going to take because the size of the list is going to be at least 1 since we have a tail. If we wouldn't have a tail, then we would need to wait until the list is big enough. But if I take the caterpillar pieces dot count as my index over here, so if it is 1 and we start at 1, then only the first thing, the tail, should follow anyhow. Well, at least that's what I assume to happen. So what I want to know at first is, what is the current piece? The current body part piece, literally. So who is the current body part? The current body part is the part we are currently looping through at the current index I in this for loop. I don't know, probably. I need to catch that first. So, but I don't want to do this. Do I want to do this in the for loop? Yeah, maybe not. Maybe I could, maybe not. So let's say it's a game object, current piece is equal to the caterpillar pieces in square brackets I. This is the current piece. The previous piece is the same thing. Maybe I use transforms instead of that. I'm not quite sure yet. So the previous piece, the one which is before it, is the current piece minus 1. So it can also be the head, because the head is literally number 0. So now we know this, and now we want to set the distance from the previous piece to from the current piece to the previous piece. So we say set distance, current piece, comma. Now we want to know the next one. Probably I need to translate it. Current piece to previous piece, comma, and now we need the desired distance, and I don't know the distance yet, so let me say, I don't know, 2, whatever that means, whatever that distance could be. And since these are typed game object, we need to say dot transform. So probably I'm gonna make the game object pieces later on being transforms, so it's easier to. So I don't need to type extra transform over there if needed. Now what I want to do is I want to look with the current body piece. Oh no, wait. Let's do the first things first. Let me, after doing all the inputs over here, let me just say we want to move the tail. Just as that, just to see if our tail, once it is created at the very start, where that's hopefully working, I don't really remember. And I take away the apple so we don't pick it up by mistake. At least for the moment. I just, bring it away a bit. And we see exactly what's happening. So I just bring it here and press play and see when the tails has been created, where it is. So if I now would go over here, it would still go and move behind my body, which is fantastic. So now what we need to do is our tail now needs to always look in the same direction, literally, of the piece beforehand. By the way, this distance here seems to be something else, but not 2. It's a bit too far away for 2. But I can play around with these numbers, or maybe use the sprite size divided by 2. Take the other sprite size, it's just sprite size over x. No, over y probably, divided by 2, and so I know the size, and then add them together. So if I would go this way, the piece would follow and tries to keep the same distance, which is awesome. Now the next thing, once again, is the look at. I want the tail to look into the direction of the head, like with its same rotation, literally. Let's try to do this. So after we are setting the distance for the next current iterated body piece, I want to take a look from the current piece to what? That's the question. Let me just store this in a vector and see if that makes anyhow sense later on. So programming is not just, going straight. Sometimes you need to think about corners or around corners and maybe find something. Basically this is just a position distance thing, literally, so I just name it D, because it's not really it is a distance between the current body part position and the actual head or the previous position, literally. So the current piece position minus the previous piece position, or vice versa. Let's try. So current piece dot transform dot position minus previous piece dot transform dot position. So basically it's a distance between basically that's what it is. It's a distance between the two. But it also, I believe so, can anyhow take in consideration the rotation. So current piece dot transform dot, and then we got the look at. So we can look into the direction of something. And in this case, we want to look into the direction of the previous body piece. Previous piece dot transform dot position. And we want to take in consideration, we want to use the world upper axis. In this case, it looks like we can use D. Let's see what that does. And if the tail is going to rotate into the direction of the previous piece, or of the head in this particular case. At least for the moment, maybe we get it to the point where I'm quite happy. Where's the tail? Oh, it's doing a different something. It rotates wrong. So maybe it's vice versa. The previous... Let's try the opposite. Previous minus current. Maybe we could just use vector3.up. But maybe that's not correct. Same issue. Doesn't look correct. The world up axis. What is the world up axis? Let me try vector3.up. I don't think that... No, it's actually vector3.forward, but... Is that just the rotation? No idea. As we can tell, it kinda does what it should, but vector3.forward shouldn't, or doesn't look correctly. Doesn't look correctly doing this stuff. So the current piece It doesn't translate probably. Sorry, I just lost the stream for a second because OBS just reconnected. Okay, so how do I look from the current piece? Maybe it has to be current piece dot transform dot op. The rotation is a bit strange since we are still going over x and y axis. We are literally not using the forward axis, so the rotations may or may not be correct or not. Still wrong. What if I just say left? I mean, oh no, left is not available, but right. What's going on with that? No. I believe the look at is using the actual forward axis. So the tail piece, this one. Yep. This tail piece upward axis is not sharing the same, like the look up or the look at position is using the forward axis. So the look at over here is doing the same thing. So we need to anyhow multiply that by, or just use the, let's say, correct upward axis over here. So in general, so probably it's really the vector3.up or vector3.forward or any of them. I believe I used the up already, so probably I should use the forward and see if that makes any sense and any difference. No, it's still wrong. Let's try forward. No. Forward. We don't need this one. And the rotation is totally off because again the look at is going to look in the wrong direction. So what I would try now is I am not using like tail as it should, but use a, let's say, sub object, which is going to be my holder for that. So I create an empty game object as a child, so tail, and I make it so that I grab it and bring it outside. Oh no, wait, I'm gonna have to do this different. First I create it, so I know where the up axis is. Now I need to rotate it by 90. Is that 90? Probably that. No, it was a bit too much. So the forward axis is now different than the other axis, as you can see. So what I want is that this object looks upwards or forwards. So this is going to look forward. So probably, depending on where my camera is. Yeah, this is correct. Now I want to make rename this tail. Now I want to make this part of the tail piece first and zero this one out in XYZ and just in position. So we're just where the other piece is. Now I take it out again and take the tail piece and make it part of tail, like as a child. So now we have the forward axis being here, the local forward axis, and this one here can be any rotation, literally. And now I take tail piece in prefabs and override the current one. But it doesn't let me, so I just get rid of the actual tail piece, delete and unpack. Now I take tail and bring this over here. Of course, tail is literally empty, but we can see it's now just different oriented. I get rid of it, and in here I just need to drag the new piece in the tail. And if I now press play, I may or may not see the upward axis taking a look forwards, and so the tail is hopefully following up, which it does. Now we rotate. And now we see another thing, is this piece now still looks forward, but it takes another extra step over there, which rotates it also over X, which we don't want to do as well. So what I try now is using vector3.forward over here instead of using the positions between the current and the previous position. Probably there's just another something I should get rid of. So, and now we have a pretty nicely following tail. Now the apple has been eaten. Of course, the tail is still following. It follows literally the body part. There's a difference here, we can see this. But we can also see that this tail piece now has also a wrong orientation. So I need to take this body piece again and do change the actual rotation of this object to be as the same as the tail piece. So again, I need to create an empty game object, and I need to rotate this one 90 degrees upwards. Need to check, looks good. Now I need to make, or rename this one to be body, just in case. I make it part of body piece and go reset X, Y, and Z and get rid of it again. Now I need to unpack. I can't do this here, so I'm gonna go and destroy the... How did I do this before? Delete and unpack. Now I take the body piece and make it part of body. Now I take the body and use this also here in the caterpillar. Now we can get rid of it. Again, the desired distance is going to be different, absolutely. Now let's see when we pick up the body. It might not look 1%, but looks pretty promising. So now it looks like a fish, but that's fine. We have a smooth movement in between them two pieces. We just need to increase the size, or let's say the distance, which is the desired distance over here between the pieces. So if we say something like 1.2, 1.5, 1 point whatever, need to use an F for float values, integers don't need it. That's a bit big or a bit huge, but maybe we need to make, as I said before, a difference between what is a body piece and what is a tail piece. Pretty good. I really like that. And it does a rather soft translation. So if if it is the last piece, we may have another desired position or a distance than if it is not the last piece. So literally, if I is, I believe, yeah, that's how we maybe create different distances. Like if I is smaller than caterpillar pieces dot count -1, we're gonna have another distance. And what we can do is we can just desired distance or this distance. Maybe I can also put this difference or different. We're gonna set it to 0, and in here, if the I is smaller than the count -1, so it's not the last one, we're gonna set the desired distance to be equal to 1 point, let's say 2f. And if that is not the case, because the tail is a bit smaller, then we maybe set this one to be, I don't know, 1f. I'm not quite sure if that makes any sense, but... And here we just use the desired distance. We just calculated over here. There's one more thing. No, actually, maybe I'm correct with that. Should have eaten this one to see if it is correct. So to make my life a bit easier, I'm gonna go back to 2D view and duplicate the apple multiple times. And so we can even go further testing and see how our body parts are going to look. And if the distances are going to be rather correct. It looks nice. Absolutely phenomenal. Uh, 1.2 for the body pieces seems to be a bit too small, so maybe you're gonna use 1.3, 1.4, something like that. And for the tail piece, I probably go for 1.2 or yeah, maybe 1.2 or 1.1. So it's a bit try and error depending on how big the images are going to be. And yeah, then basically we are done with that. The only thing is we might want to go for is when we are spawning the pieces. Should eat my first piece. Well, there is more space. I should be able to get a bit more. But if I, let's say, if I spawn other pieces and I'm like circled or something, or in a weird shape, let's say, then the pieces may not 100% work because they are maybe shaped wrong. Awesome. So the final step I would say is just playing around a bit with the speed. Maybe we can go with something like 1.5, maybe 2. We can play around with rotation speed later on to make it a bit more, let's say, appealing. And well, that's basically everything we need to eat some apples. What we could do is we could make the game literally unlimited. That means the camera always follows the caterpillar, so there's literally no dead end. Or we're gonna put in some kind of a I don't know, a wall, so nobody can literally get rid of the game screen, or you cannot leave the game screen. So there are a bunch of possibilities. What we could say is, okay, if the nose touches a wall, then the speed is going to be maybe something like 0, but only the move speed, so the translation stops. But the rotations should still work, so we would be able to get out of this, let's say, bad situation. Maybe we could use also something like rigid body collision, so whenever the nose touches, or maybe the head touches something, that we are able to get rid of that. So last thing I would go for is just taking the body and animate the foot. So just use that thing. We need to go into the body pieces, the left leg and the right leg. These two are the ones we want to animate. And where we're gonna put the animation controller basically doesn't matter. We could directly put it on this or on this pieces, or on the body piece. So, but we need to be at least in space, let's say. So if we say we want to go animation for this one piece, and we say assets, prefabs, well, basically what we need to, or what we want to do is probably create an animations folder. Animations. And we just name this one legs. Now we can add properties. So the property we want is animation transform rotation. Can add it here. And we also have the right leg transform, and here we got the rotation. That's basically it. We could also, by the way, go and just hit the record button. And now we can, animate the legs. So since the rotation happens over the pivot point, I'm gonna stop pretty quick. Go here, and I cannot take it. I would like to take the pivot point to be at this point. Transform tool. I don't know what that transform tool is. It looks like everything can be steered from this, so that looks new. So yeah, I would just say I would try to animate it as good as I can. Best way would be probably using pretty quickly some bones on that. I'm not quite sure if I can mix these bones into this scenario would be nice, but not quite sure. Because I have ripped it apart already. But let's try. Or I'm anyhow able to put the actual pivot or rotation point not into the center of the actual object, which is the actual issue. But as you can tell, the actual position point is over here. It's a custom pivot, but it didn't care about it. So what happens if I put a new one? No, it doesn't care. There we go. We need to set it to a pivot point. That's nice. So again, I go to the body piece, window, animation. And now I can, or I should be able to do a pivot point based animation. So I'm gonna do a lift over there. I need to hit record, rotate it, let's say here. Maybe I can also do something with squeezing. So we do rotation, it rotates it up and down. So I copy these keys and bring them here to 130, no, to 2, paste. And on here, on over 130, I'm gonna do the backside. What I could also try to do is doing some squeezing so it looks like we are lifting it by using scale. Maybe on this parameter or on this point. So it looks like it is squeezing it backwards. And over here we need to go and use the scale key, this one, copy, and need to scale back where it has been. Pretty good. Maybe I can keep it as it is. And then we got the other rotation, so of the right leg. So basically we do the opposite, maybe. And of course going back. And now when we are like here, we might want to go and scale here a bit as well. Not quite sure if we need to make it larger when it's back. But I believe so we make it this one large here. And we make this one small at this point. So this one is up and this one is down. Then we go here, it's still up. Now this one here needs to go down. So we need to scale back. Which is the right leg scale. And I just take the complete key and make it something like that. It doesn't look ultra good, because in here it should be a bigger left scale third, and from here it should be also bigger scaled, I guess. Now it looks, let's say, correcter. And we now want to override the actual animation stuff, and we can get rid of that. And if we later want to make this one a bit quicker in case of its animation, then we can do so. So at the beginning we don't have any foot, we are just like a nothing, something small. We're gonna go and pick up an apple and see how our leg animation now looks. So every body piece now is moving its legs. Separately from the other ones. Pretty neat, I guess. And that's basically everything you need to make something like a snakes game and so on and so forth. So we have some pickups, we have body pieces which are following up other body pieces, literally the ones before. There is still there are still parts to be optimized, to optimize code and stuff like that. Like, for example, calculating the correct desired distance. Depending on the pieces itself. So if our current piece is literally the last piece, we're gonna have a different one. We can also say if our last piece is a tail piece, which usually does, then the calculation of the desired distance is probably a bit different over here as well. So yeah, all of that is something we need to fiddle out, or you probably gonna go for and fiddle out on your own if you like. And yeah, just think about how could you keep the player inside the actual, yeah, how can you keep the player inside the playfield? This is something you can check on your own. And yeah, that's basically it. So point 2 looks a bit too squishy, but that's okay. So every time we're gonna pick up pieces, then we can increase size. That looks awesome. Well, for something easy like that. And that's basically everything I wanted to discover in this tutorial, and I still hope you enjoyed this one, and talk to you